Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 488 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, and I'll be asked to agree with me and ask you to hear me out. So if you've listened to this podcast for a while, if you have stuck with me for a while, you know my gripes with the NFL Combine. And ironically enough, I think the theme of this episode is going to be about coverage. It's going to be about how things are covered. Now, yes, those gripes that I have with the Combine are still there. I'm not going to continue on with. I don't feel I need to make it a whole segment as to what I don't and don't like about the. In fact, you know what it is? My gripe isn't with the Combine. My gripe is with laziness. I feel a lot of these GMs, a lot of these NFL scouts have used the Combine to supersede doing their job and going to games and watching game film. But I've talked about this, so I don't feel like I need to talk about it again, or I don't feel like I should go in depth again. What I do want to talk about, however, seeing as though we are in Combine season, the Combine started, I think, a couple days ago, and it's always interesting seeing the 40-yard dash, seeing the people doing the bench presses, and I get it. I think, and ironically enough, I think that people are starting to understand kind of where I'm about to go. Hey, shout out to you, the dude on YouTube that told me to, he told me to wrap it up, you know. Apparently I prolong a lot of my takes, so shouts out to you, bro. The Combine, in my opinion, is more important for the players that don't go to big schools. Or let me say this: I think not every, but most PWIs, especially the ones that go that are, you know, in the Big 12 or Pac-12, well, not really Pac-12, but Big 10, or, you know, I think all those schools are big. But the lesser known football schools, or because basketball has a Combine too, basketball schools, like we know who Abdul Carter is, projected number 1 overall pick, maybe should go number 1. I know that he came out with a foot injury, but a lot of the medical people that cover the NFL are saying that it's not going to be major if he gets surgery now, or it's really a pain tolerance thing unless it gets worse. So I don't think that's going to drastically affect his stock. I am interested to see, and I haven't really talked about it. I haven't talked about the NFL draft that much because we still have some ways to go. I was going to talk about it a little closer to the date, but I am very interested to see what the Titans do, because in the foreseeable future, I don't see the draft that's going to have a life-changing, team-changing quarterback. And you can argue if Cam Ward and Shedeur Stevens is that. But I do know that Cam Ward and Shedeur Stevens are leaps and bounds better than the rest of the quarterback pool in this draft and the quarterback drafts in the foreseeable future. So do you pass on that? Do you pass on them to go with an Abdul Carter, even though your defense isn't that terrible, but you could say that he is a once-in-a-generational defender, kind of like how Michael Parsons, which ironically they went to the same school and play the same position. You know, it's interesting. But back to the Combine. Again, I feel like this episode is going to be me, I'm not going to say going back on takes, but clearing some things up. The Combine is important for the smaller, like, for instance, Shouts out to Jordan Phillips, football player, defensive tackle from Maryland. I'm sure that there's more tape. I'm sure that people are going to look at a defensive tackle maybe from Alabama, maybe from, Penn State, before they'll look at Jordan Phillips. So you have a Jordan Phillips go to the draft or combine and has a great showing. That helps his draft stock. I understand the importance of the combine. Please do not hear me. Again, my issue isn't with the combine. My issue is just with the GMs that making the combine the law. And I don't know, man. But I do want to say shout out to everyone that is participating in the combine, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. I think he had a great combine. These are the Ed Rushers. Landon Jackson from Arkansas. I don't know what it is about Arkansas. I'm not going to say that. Shouts out to everyone, man. Look, I understand the importance. I can't reiterate that enough. I understand the importance. This is pretty much outside of team meetings and one-on-ones with these players. This is essentially the last time a lot of these players is going to have the ability to show what they can do to get to the next level. And I get it. I still don't understand why some positions do. Like, why are linebackers why are linebackers and defensive ends doing the 40-yard dash? Like, why does it matter how fast they are? Like, they're not gonna run enough. I get why the wide receivers would do it, or the running backs, or maybe even the quarterbacks. But why are the offensive linemen doing 40-yard dashes? It just doesn't make sense to me. And on the contrary, why are wide receivers doing the bench, or required to? It doesn't. I don't know. That's a little weird. But I do want to say, shouts out to everybody that's participating in the combine, and shouts out to everyone that is in the position to not have to participate in the combine. That's the thing for me. I think it's you. There's a lot of people that have played themselves into positions where they don't need the combine, and it's okay. I'm not saying that if you have to use the combine that you're worse off. I'm just saying the combine, in my opinion, should be. It's kind of like a senior day, or like the Senior Bowl. The combine shouldn't be law. It should be, this is a step for people that need it. This is for people that maybe are on the fringe, or maybe hasn't gone to those big major schools, or hasn't had a lot of coverage throughout the season. The combine should be for you. Then the other people, like a Abdul Carter, like a Cam Ward, like a Shedeur Stevens, may not need to go to the combine. So I get it. Another thing I want to talk about, and this is still kind of in the combine realm, but I want to focus on Travis Hunter for a second. And I find the coverage and the scouting report about Travis Hunter to be fascinating. So, for people that don't know about Travis Hunter, he went to Colorado, won the Heisman. He mainly won the Heisman excelling at two positions, excelling at the wide receiver and the corner back position. He played both sides of the ball majority of the season. And he is a really good football player. So good that he's probably going to go in the top 5. I'd be shocked if we make it to 6 or 7 and he's still on the board. And that's the fascinating part about this whole thing. The allure about Travis Hunter is he is able to play both sides of the ball. You can put him at corner. You can put him at wide receiver. Wherever you put him, he's good at that position. But here's where the fascination comes from. And I understand what this is going to sound like. Let me preface this by saying that this is going to sound like hate. It is not. I love everything about Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter is an incredible story. I think Travis Hunter is an incredible football player, and I hope that he makes millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in the NFL based off his talent. Great kid. I think he's great. But the allure of Travis Hunter is he's so good that he can play both sides of the ball. He's a really good wide receiver. He's a really good cornerback. And if you're drafting him high, you're drafting him because you have a player that is a legit dual threat player. And I don't mean dual threat like the quarterback position, throw the ball and pass. No, I mean a legit dual threat that you can play offense and defense. I don't think we've ever seen, if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will leave it in the comments, but I don't think we've ever seen a legit dual threat player. I think Deion Sanders might have been that one. But even in I know he could have played wide receiver, and he may have played a couple snaps, but his primary position was on the defensive side of the ball. So when I say it's fascinating, it's like, and again, I know this part is going to sound like hate, so I'm not hating. I promise you I'm not. There are huge concerns, not huge concerns. Let me back up. When you're hearing people evaluate Travis Hunter, what you mainly hear is he either, not combined, but is he either going to play wide receiver or corner? And here's the part that's going to sound like hate. Again, it's not. I'm just being honest about my opinion. If you're looking at Travis Hunter as a one position player, then I don't believe he should go I don't think his skill set as a one position player deems him to go as high as people project him to go. I think that he's an incredible wide receiver. But there are other wide receivers, just wide receivers, that are better than Travis Hunter. I think he's an incredible cornerback. But if we're just looking at him in the cornerback realm, there are many cornerbacks in college football that were better than him. Again, the allure for Travis Hunter is he can play both at a high level. So I'm fascinated to see how this goes because you're not hearing many players. Travis Hunter came out. I'll say it like this. Travis Hunter came out during the combine and said, essentially, I won the Heisman, meaning I proved to the NFL that I can excel at playing two positions. The question around it is, can he do it? Because we've never really seen it before. And you're seeing a lot of teams, and you're hearing a lot of teams come back and say, which position will we play him at? Instead of, we will play him at both positions. I'm not saying you have to play him the entire game. You can sit him out a couple plays, but again, the man won a Heisman because he excelled at two positions, not because he was extremely dominant at one. So I am just not confused. I will be confused if he's drafted high, drafted in the top 5, but he's solely going to be used on one side of the ball. Because in that case, I think that there are many players better than him. Not many. There are players better than him as a one-position player. There's obviously no players in this draft better than him at two positions. So if you're a team, why would you draft him if you don't utilize him to the best of his ability, which is two positions? And when you're hearing the reports come back, you're hearing the scouts, he clearly felt like he had to make that statement because there are teams, and most NFL teams are looking at him as what position, not positions, what position are we going to use him as? So I think situations like that is why I do like the combine. The combine, especially for players like Travis Hunter, you don't need to prove anything else. You don't need to prove anything else. You just need, I think it's a good platform that allows you to use your voice. Because, what is a 40-yard dash going to do with Travis Hunter? You gonna go from 5 to 4? What are we doing? Now, yes, I understand that not every player in the combine clearly is Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter or Cam Ward or Shedeur Stevens. I get that. But for the players like that, I think the combine is a great, just to get if there's any questions, you get to answer them. And one of the questions is, and I think, honestly, why I love Travis Hunter, and I love Travis Hunter with Deion Sanders. I think if Travis Hunter would have went to any other school, I think if he was paired with any other coach, you wouldn't get this level. You wouldn't get this Travis Hunter. I think you'd get a Travis Hunter that would accept a team drafting him just to play at one position. He said that, and he made that loud and clear. I want a Heisman playing the way that I play, meaning I don't want to go to your team if you're not going to allow me to play both sides of the ball. And for anyone that has concerns about me playing both sides of the ball, I refer you to my Heisman. Now, yes, nobody is saying that the NFL and college football is on the same level of skill. I am very interested to see how Travis Hunter deals with NFL speed when we talk about wide receivers, when we talk about corners, if he's going to play, or when he plays the wide receiver position. But I love what he said. I love it. And I'm very interested to see who drafts him, and are they going to draft him and let him play both sides of the ball? Because he has been very clear. It's kind of like Lamar Jackson to a certain extent. People didn't trust, even with a Heisman and even with a groundbreaking seasons he had in Louisville, people didn't trust that Lamar Jackson was talented enough to play the quarterback position in the NFL, which is why during the combine, most scouts, most GMs wanted him to play wide receiver. But shouts out to Lamar and his family to say, no, don't draft me if you expect me to play wide receiver. Imagine if Lamar Jackson would have played wide receiver, we wouldn't have got what we got today. To a lesser extent, I'm fine. I see the same. I see parallels in the way that they're covered between Lamar Jackson and Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter has made it extremely clear that I expect and I would like to play both sides of the ball when I come to the NFL. So don't draft me if you're only expecting me to play one side. To me, that is the confidence. Not only is built because of his play, but it's built because you're with one of the most confident human beings I think the world has ever produced, and that is Deion Sanders. So I'm interested, man. I'm rooting for Travis Hunter to be able to shine. And he feels the best way for him to shine is obviously playing both sides of the ball. So I hope that a team doesn't get in his way of growth and allows him to play both sides of the ball. But we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, let's move on. And there's been a lot of chatter around the NBA lately. Even on here, I've come on here and talked about the All-Star game. I talked about the changes that need to be seen for All-Star weekend to make it palatable again. And I alluded to this, but you're seeing it more and more and more and more and more throughout the NBA spaces. And that is the way that the NBA is covered. A lot of the topics that we've heard recently about the NBA is connected to the way the NBA is covered. Whether you talk about All-Star Weekend and how the coverage around All-Star Weekend has changed. Whether you talk about the Anthony Edwards comments about being the face of the league, a lot of that is due to the way the NBA is covered. And the reason why I've seen other smaller, when I say smaller, I meant smaller in terms of the NBA platforms talk about this. Like I've seen Kenny, I forgot his Beach something. Kenny, he's shouts out to you, bro. Inspiration from what you do in the media space, sports media space. I saw him talking about it. I seen Gilbert Arenas and Gil's Arena talk about this. I saw Shannon Sharp and Nightcap talk about this. I saw Cameron and Mace, It Is What It Is, talk about this. And I wanted to, obviously my toe in my proverbial pond is much smaller, or my footprint in this sports pond is much, much smaller. But I wanted to give my take on it. If you ever, and this is also spirit because LeBron James said something about it. So I definitely wanted to talk about it. If you ever wanted to know how important the relationship is between an organization and how the organization is covered, look at the NBA. It is important that let me give you guys an example before I move on. Now, this is to the extreme, like extreme. But I understand it. Do you guys remember that announcer for the Baltimore Orioles? The Baltimore Orioles had an announcer. I forgot his name. I apologize, bro. Think you're great at your job. The Baltimore Orioles had an announcer, and one game, I don't remember who it was against the Blue Jays. And he was expressing how difficult it has been for the Orioles. Mind you, he is an Orioles commentator. He, or play-by-play analyst or something like that. He was describing how the Blue Jays have dominated the series as of recently with the Orioles. And again, he didn't say anything wrong. He didn't say anything not factual. He was just highlighting the fact that the Orioles have struggled with the Toronto Blue Jays in recent memory. That proceeded, or the Orioles proceeded to suspend him. I don't know if he's back. I hope he is. But they proceeded to suspend him because he was essentially talking down on the Orioles while covering the Orioles. Now, I'm not saying that they're right. I think that they were wrong. I think that they overplayed their hand. I think that they were just over sensitive about honesty. But I understand how important it is, I understand how important your image is. Your image is everything. And you're hiring people to enhance your image. No, I do not think that the Orioles should have suspended homie, because he didn't do anything except tell the truth. But I understand that the truth made the Orioles look bad. And they don't want somebody on their broadcast making them look worse. Let me bring it back to the NBA. Whether we talk about All-Star Weekend, whether we talk about these games that happen every single night, whether we talk about the face of the league, whether we talk about the league in general, it is shocking to me how negative the NBA coverage is about the NBA. I have one of the prime examples. If you want a prime example about this, did you see how Draymond Green was talking about All-Star Weekend the entire time? Almost every single time we saw Draymond Green, he was crapping on the NBA and their format with All-Star Weekend, how All-Star Weekend is being executed, the All-Star game, the format. He was crapping on it. If you look at, and shouts out to everyone, I'm not bashing anyone, I'm just being honest. If you look at how some people come in and talk about the NBA on Inside the NBA, or NBA Today with ESPN, or Fox, or these former players that have platforms, I think it's great that you have your own platform, but it seems like there is more negative commentary surrounding the NBA than it's ever been, which I think is shocking, because I've said before, I think this is the golden age of the NBA. I said this last episode. This is the best the NBA has ever been. Every team except maybe one or two has a star. And even those one or two, I'm thinking about Portland and I'm thinking about Washington. Scoot Henderson has an opportunity to be a star moving forward. And Washington, while they don't have a star, they have a young nucleus that could be very exciting moving forward. So this is the golden age of the NBA. I just think it's crazy how the NBA is being talked about. And on top of that, the way the NBA is being talked about is lessening the experience of the viewer, which i.e. makes ratings go down and makes the relationship between the NBA and the fans go down, because the people that they listen to break down the NBA, talk about the NBA, is usually negative. And this segment was speared because LeBron James was asked a question about Anthony Edwards not wanting to be the face of the NBA. And LeBron said, yeah, why would he want to be the face of the NBA when every single time you hear someone cover the NBA, they crap on it? Why would you want that type of scrutiny? It's like, I don't get it. The NBA, in my opinion, is the best league in the world. obviously I'm a bigger basketball fan than football fan, so I'm sure somebody in the comments will be like, "What about the NFL?" I get it, but even if you look at the NFL, you don't hear people. You hear a level of care when you talk about how they discuss, even former athletes discuss the game. But I just don't. Yes, the NBA is not perfect. I understand that. There are some issues with the NBA. There are some issues with, you know, some things with the NBA, but there's issues with every single league. No league is perfect. Hell, you can go down the list. Every league has things to work on. Even the unrivaled, the new league, has things to work on. But I don't think it's in the unrivaled's best interest to continue to broadcast people and hire people that is going to crap on the game. And that's the issue that the NBA faces. That's, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why Anthony Edwards doesn't want to be the face of the league, because the league is in such a fragile place because the people that cover it. Like, don't get me wrong, man. I love Inside the NBA. We all love Inside the NBA. We love Ernie. We love Shaq. We love Kenny. We love Charles Barkley. But they're famous for crapping on the league. They're famous on crapping on games that they're covering. We love Stephen A. Smith. We know how important Stephen A. Smith is to the sports realm. But Stephen A. Smith is famous for crapping on the league. And then you have PK Subban. I said I didn't want to talk about this when I was covering All-Star Week, but you have PK Subban, who's not even a part of the NBA. He's part of the NHL, was crapping on the league. And that was going around for a couple days. So my thing is this. Do these people really want the league to grow? Or do they just want their voices to be heard? And they understand that the way you get your voice to be heard is by going against the grain or joining the party, which is crapping on the league that you're being paid to cover. And you're wondering why ratings are down. Nobody wants to hear you crap on their favorite team. Even if their favorite team has flaws, there's better ways to address it. Even if the NBA has flaws, there's better ways to address it. We've gotten to it again. People in my comments was shocked when I said that this is the golden age of basketball. They're like, whoa, what about the early 90s or the 80s with Michael Jordan? Or what about the early 2000s with LeBron and Kobe and Shaq and AI and, your favorite players, AI? What about... I never said that those eras weren't great at basketball. I mainly said this is the golden age of basketball because we've never seen this much talent throughout the league. Hell, the Pelicans have one of the worst records in the league. They still have Zion Williamson. The Raptors have one of the worst records in the league. They still have Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram. The Jazz have one of the worst records in the league. They still have Lauri Markkanen. He hasn't been playing great this year, but he's still a star. But the way that the NBA and the league is covered, you wouldn't think. You'd think that what I said is blasphemous. I think the league has to do a better job at covering itself. I think the league and the people that cover the league have a responsibility of growing the league. You have a responsibility of making a casual or a novice fan understand that they're watching the best product of basketball they can watch. And it seems like as of recently, the media, us, we have failed at that. So, yes, I think that there's a lot of things that contribute to the ratings being down. I think one of the biggest contributors to that is the way that the NBA is being covered by the people that is paid to promote the product. The players can only do so much, but if you're getting crapped on night after night after night by the people that are supposed to big up the sport, I understand why a player as talented as Anthony Edwards wouldn't want to be the face of the league, because why would I want to inherit that? We have to do better as media. Again, I know that I have a small, very small footprint in this large ecosystem that is the NBA and sports in general. I know the Unpopular podcast is a extremely small footprint, but a footprint nonetheless. So I have a responsibility as well to talk about the game. I'm not saying don't be honest, but I'm saying there's a way of being honest and not crapping on the product in which you want to grow. That's all I'm saying. We need to do better. Lastly, before we go, I want to talk about North Carolina for a second. With March, ooh, Jesus loves you. With March Madness coming up, this being the first day of March, North Carolina, in my opinion, is the absolute perfect representation of everything that's going on in college basketball. Some for the good and some for the bad. Now, people that know me understand that my favorite sports team is North Carolina. That's even over all of my Washington love, Capitals, Commanders, Wizards. I'm obviously from the DMV, but my dad's side of the family, and the first team that I really started to love was North Carolina, so that's my favorite team. So it doesn't bring me great joy in talking about this iteration of North Carolina. However, there's a lot that you can learn from this iteration of North Carolina. College sports is the perfect example that the world is changing. Do you remember when there's a lot of people there are some people that listen to this podcast that wasn't old enough, but do you remember when the number one form of communication media-wise was the newspaper or the radio? Or there was a time, and this was even before my time, but there was a time when TV would turn off. Like TV wasn't a 24-hour thing. It turned off at a certain time. There were times when there was no such thing as streaming. Like, Netflix is a relatively new thing. The world evolves. The world changes every day. And if you want a perfect example of that in the sports realm, just look at college sports. The college sports that we saw even 5 years ago is different than what we've seen today. College football, college basketball in 2020, let's go back. 2019, 2018 is nothing like what it is in 2025. Everything has changed. Whether we talk about NIL, whether we talk about the use and the importance of the transfer portal, whether we talk about now schools being able to give out NIL and being able to give out money to players. When we talk about schedule, hell, 2018, we had a robust Pac-12. Remember when the Pac-12 used to be a thing? College sports has changed. And you're probably asking yourself, where does North Carolina fall in this? North Carolina is a cautionary tale. North Carolina is the perfect example of what happens when a team, when an organization, when a company takes too long to change or isn't open to change until they need to. When you look at this North Carolina team, basketball team, you see the people that they have. Elliot Cadeau, R.J. Davis, Ian Jackson. This Jalen Withers. On paper, a lot of these, outside of Ian Jackson, who's a freshman, a lot of these players came back to school. And usually, a team full of upperclassmen, seniors, juniors, usually fare well in college basketball or college football because they have years of experience. They have things and they understand how college basketball works. More than a freshman who may have a bunch of talent. That talent can get you far in high school, but college is a different beast. Not saying that, you can't be, hell, look at Cooper Flagg. Look at players like Kyrie Irving. Look at players like Anthony Davis. Not all freshmen aren't great. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of one and dones. But it's important to specify that a veteran-laden team, a upper-class-laden team, usually fares well in college sports. But then you look at North Carolina. North Carolina approached this season as they approach every season. We're going to do the quote-unquote traditional way. We're going to traditionally try to scout and try to recruit. We're going to traditionally try to draw people to North Carolina. We're going to do what we've done traditionally, which has found us success. I mean, hell, in 2019, 2020, I think, or 2021. They were in the national championship. Yes, they lost to Kansas, but they were in the national championship. So clearly, some of the traditional ways has worked. But then it goes back to what I was just talking about. College sports has changed. Why do you think? Do you think that it's just random that when you look at most of the best teams in college basketball today, most of them are in the SEC? Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that now more than ever, mind you, the dominant conference used to be ACC and Big Ten? No. ACC and the Big 12. Those used to be the dominant, mainly ACC, North Carolina, Duke, Clemson. ACC used to dominate college basketball. You have teams in the Big Ten like Oregon. They made it to a national champion. Oh, no, they made it to a Final Four. Gonzaga had a couple of national championship appearances. Baylor won a national championship, the Big 12. But it usually was the Big 12, Big 10, and mainly the ACC. Why do you think now, more than ever, at this moment, the SEC is not only the better conference right now, but they are better and dominating by a wide margin? I'd be shocked by the end of this year that a team outside of Duke, I hate them, but they do have Cooper Flag, and they are, I think, the second or third ranked team in the league. Or in the nation. Outside of Duke, I'd be shocked if a team outside the SEC found themselves hoisting the national championship at the end of the year. That's because the SEC has adopted to the new way of college sports faster than the ACC, which brings me back to North Carolina. The old ways are obsolete. The people, you ever hear those stories of those artists that stand in front of, I don't know, Def Jam Records or Warner Music or something like that with a CD, and they're just hoping that an exec walks by that you can hand them their CD and say, hey, just give me a shot, or a famous artist walks by and said, hey, here's my CD. That is obsolete. Bow Wow and Johnson's Vacation or something like that, where he tossed them Jones. That's what they do. Unfortunately, CDs are becoming obsolete. The way that there's a reason why they've come out this year and said that North Carolina is going to hire a GM. Because college sports is being run more and more like the professionals. So you have to have a professional mindset. The old way of coaching, the old way of recruiting, the old way of scouting is done. And you look at teams like North Carolina who should be good. North Carolina should be amongst the top teams because they are a storied franchise, a storied school. They have Michael Jordan, for God's sakes. They're in danger and probably will not, unless they make a magical ACC tournament run, they're probably not going to make the tournament. A team that has the third, shouts out to RJ Davis, the third all-time leading scorer in ACC history, has Hubert Davis, who in his small stint as a coach, he's been to a national championship. He's been to a Final Four. No, a Sweet 16. No, Elite 8. He's been to an Elite 8. And a Final Four. Probably not going to make the playoffs. Think about that. Because they're so used to the old way of doing things. Well, that's only going to get you so far. And so far is not the national championship. Again, shout out to the SEC. They have adapted, and obviously they have more money than most conferences because of the football side of it. And football, I mean, is so dominating, you know. But you look at look at Michigan. Remember when Michigan was a powerhouse in college basketball? Well, Ohio State, they just won a national championship in football. Where are they at in basketball? North Carolina, my school, probably not even going to make the conference. I mean, make March Madness, make the tournament. We may have to settle with an NIL. NIT invitation, which last time we got an invitation, we declined it. North Carolina is a cautionary tale. There's nothing wrong if you want to continue to do the old traditional way. If that's what you want to do, if that's your prerogative, hey, rock out, bro. But don't think that you're a contender for glory if you're going to do that, because kind of like the guy that comes to the party with a cassette tape, or the DJ that plays their set on CDs. Time has passed you by. Time has passed North Carolina by. And if they don't adjust, they're already too late. But if they don't adjust, you're going to keep getting seasons like this, getting dominated in the recruiting class. North Carolina, that is sponsored by Jordan, gets dominated in the recruiting class because they do it, they get dominated in the transfer portal because the old ways work. In the old days. But with the famous lines of The Wire, the thing about the old days is they're the old days. And if you, shouts out to North Carolina for getting a GM, I guess, after the season. But if you want to, compete, if you want to be considered a viable team, you're going to have to adapt. And that, you're seeing why, looking at North Carolina, they have not adapted, and you see where they are. Don't get me wrong. Ali Cadeau is a great player. RJ Davis is a great player. The students, the players at North Carolina are good. But you look at this the roster for, as unfortunate as it is, look at the roster for Duke. You look at the roster for Alabama. Look at the roster for Auburn, Florida, and think to yourself, damn, I wonder why their roster is so stacked. And North Carolina, who's a storied franchise, more storied than them, is struggling to survive, adapt. That is the end of the episode. I want to talk to you guys for a second. This isn't no sports anything. This isn't music. This isn't movies. This is just me talking. So for people that don't consider themselves content creators, for people that don't engage or don't put out stuff, whether that's YouTube, whether that's streaming, whether that's podcasting, a lot of those people don't put out content, but enjoy the fruits of other people's labor. Um, I don't know what it's been these last few months. Well, yeah, months. But it's hit my front door. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, especially streamers. There's been a lot more negativity. You know what I mean? Come to the page. Come to people, whether that's comments, whether that's you're seeing a lot of beefs go on with. Here's the thing, man. This may seem easy to just come sit in front of a microphone, sit in front of a camera, sit in front of a computer and talk or play video games or walk around with a camera with your everyday life and vlog. But it's not. This takes a level of dedication that a lot of people don't see. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people, frankly, try to do, but realize just how daunting it can be and stop doing it. And that's no offense to you. I get it. And I also want to say, just for me personally, I never let the negative comments get to me, because in the back of my mind, like, these people don't know me from a can of paint. You just know what I put out. Now, yes, I understand that the things that I put out and the things that a lot of these content creators put out, you open yourself to criticism. I don't mind criticism. It's just the negative, offensive shots. I end every episode by saying, follow me on social media. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. Again, your criticisms of the art that I put out, nothing wrong with that. Hell, I appreciate it. But when you are offensive to me and you take shots at me that have nothing to do with what I put out, and then I also see people that I follow or people that I listen to that are also in this realm, and they're getting hate stuff because maybe you don't like what they talk about, or streamers get sexually harassed. It's like, it's all about coverage, man. What? At the end of the day, I think that this screen right here, people's phones, it allows you, it grants you access to people and things that you would never have access to. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but it also allows people, and people forget that on the other end of that screen, you're talking to a human being. Where is this coming from? There was a young lady, and she's a streamer, and she unfortunately, what's the word that we're on? No, that sounds crazy. She's not here anymore because a lot of the hate that she was receiving, a lot of the stuff that she's receiving, and going down a rabbit hole I see a lot of that. Hell, I have a personal page and a podcast page, and going on the podcast page and looking at people and seeing their comments and how, looking at other people's stuff and the hate that they get, the racial stuff that I get. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself to a lady that lost her life, but what I'm saying is be kind. At the end of the day, if you don't like what I do, if you don't like what another person does, the beauty about this world and the beauty about this form of content is there's hundreds upon hundreds of other stuff that you can consume. Meaning you don't have to consume my stuff. You don't have to consume something that you don't like. It's a lot easier to do that instead of spew hate. Again, criticism and hate are two different things, bro. So, I usually end this with saying, follow the podcast, follow social media, follow Instagram, follow YouTube, DSPs, get some Unpopular podcast merch. I don't really feel like ending that today or ending it that way. All I'm just going to say is this. Be kind. I understand that we live in an economy that pretty much promotes division and pretty much promotes hate. And I'm not telling you who you should root for. I'm not telling you who you should support politically. I'm not saying none of that. But in the great words of Joy Reid, the only way to combat hate is love. And just because you hate me doesn't mean that I can't love you. So I'm saying that to say, bruh, respect others. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like what I put out. That's fine. You can criticize what I put out. That's fine. But be respectful. Because like Cheyenne, who was the lady that lost her life, you don't know what you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what people are going through. And this could be the only escape for people. So please, if you're not going to leave with love, don't leave with anything. Just leave. And for the people that are leaving, I hope you find what you're looking for. Have a great day.